hi, hello, welcome to episode 62 of Trail Society, brought to you by our friends over at Free Trail. I'm Corrine Malcolm.
And I'm Keely Henninger.
And Hillary Allen is running around Wales or something right now, hopefully sleeping actually right now, but is off and about as she makes her way over towards Thailand. Keely, I don't think I was even peeping your Strava. I think it was an Instagram story. And I was like, you sicko, you did some long runs last week. Tell me a little bit, just a tiny bit about the Verdi nonsense that you got up to.
Yeah, I've actually been Strava dark for like 3 months. So yeah, you see them I post some on my Instagram just because people are interested. And also it's so different than what I normally train. So I think it's just like kind of fun to show people that like you can be versatile. But this last week was kind of my peak final build week. And in it, I had 2 pretty long runs, like over 6 hours of running a day, which, you know, based off the mileage is not like the fastest running, but they both were just filled with a ton of vert. And it wasn't supposed to be Tuesday, Sunday long runs. It was supposed to be like Monday or Sunday and then Sunday, but I was busy last weekend and just couldn't do it. So we compromised and kind of made this just a big 7-day push. And yeah, the first run, I was solo the whole time for the 5 hours and got like 8,000 feet in 25 miles and then did a double in the evening. Again, just based off life stuff. And it was super fun. It was really good to be by myself for that long and also just feel like I was having super fun with it all. And then, you know, I was joking with some locals who know BPA Road, which is this like pretty steep trail in Portland. It's the steepest one in the park. It's about 900 feet in 0.85, 0.9 miles. So it's basically 1,000 feet a mile grade. And I had done 4 of them in that long run because it's like the best way to get vert in short amount of distance. And I was like, okay, cool. Like won't have to do this again until Sunday. So like, at least I get a break. But then of course, like I look ahead at my workouts cause I just don't really read them ahead of the day. And Tyler was like, okay, we're going to do a hill workout on BPA, 3 by BPA. And I was like, oh dear God. Okay.
I'm living on this 0.9 mile section of road.
Yeah.
Sick.
So I did 10 this week with like, so just in that part of my training was like 19 miles and 10,000 feet. So
dude, that's disgusting.
A lot. Yep. So it was a really good week. And super fun and like very different than what I'm doing normally, but it's been really fun mentally to just have my watch on the the duration and the elevation gain mode, not look at pace, not look at mileage, and just kind of go for the vert that he wants me to get. And it's normally like within a couple miles of what he wanted, but I'm not fixating on that at all, which has just been really fun and like so refreshing to, I was telling you earlier, get to a big hill and like normally I run them all because I like to run and I'm horrible at hiking, but I've been hiking so much now and that's what we're supposed to do. So I get to go to a hill and be like, oh, we're just going to hike it. This is great. Have a little snack, hike the hill.
I distinctly remember, I don't remember what you were training for. This is like OG you and I hanging out. Like we were still living in Bellingham, I think at this point. And I came down to Portland for like a weekend. And I stayed with you in that old house. You were living in like in the very far upstairs. Yep. And we went for that run and you brought poles with you. Maybe you were training for CCC.
I was training for CCC in 2017.
Yeah. And you were like, I have to hike. I have to bring poles. And then we like start this stupid run and you're just like off running up the hill. And I was like, Keely, like you're supposed to be hiking. I agreed to go on this run because you told me that you'd be hiking. Yeah. So
that was a really cool route because it's like, I think that one was like 4,000 feet or 5,000 feet in 6 miles or something.
Yeah. We had a good crew too. Like Gordo was there, I think that day. Like it was a fun group.
Route, unfortunately, like the way we came down, which was way more cruisy, is still open, but that climb up got burned out. So it's not a climb anymore.
Yeah. But how we've come full circle. Look at you now.
Come full circle.
Little hiking machine 5 years later, 6 years later. Yeah. Okay, let's do this dance. We got to give a shout out. You're up. Do it. Take it.
Yeah. So if you guys have been longtime listeners, you might know that both of us have been drinking AG1 for like 2 years now. And when I started drinking AG1 daily, I was a little skeptical first. But then as soon as I started drinking it consistently, like I found that during the afternoons when I would have it kind of as a coffee replacement, because I was used to having coffee like 24/7, I felt like way more energized and like had way less of a crash. And so I kind of became a convert. And since then I've just mixed it with so many different things. Like sometimes I'll throw it with oat milk, sometimes I'll throw it with protein powder. Like I always just kind of mix it up, but it's definitely turned into my go-to like midday drink or snack, whatever the medium I drink it through is. And I love it because it makes me feel good. And because it's a foundational nutritional supplement, it supports all of my body's universal needs and really helps with gut optimization, all my stress management, and immune support, which is pretty sweet. And they're always refining their formula to create like a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. So I feel really good whenever I'm trying it because I know that they're thinking about all of us when they're building it. How do you think it makes you feel? Have you noticed any of those kind of differences?
I have, yeah. I mean, I bought a really fancy espresso machine, so I'm definitely like an espresso bae at this point.
Yes, same.
But I'm also a drink or a beverage goblin. I don't know if you've seen that TikTok, but it's like I've got my coffee, I've got my AG1 smoothie situation, and I have my electrolytes. For those watching on YouTube, you just saw my drink goblin status. For those of you listening to this, I have a plethora of beverages on my desk in my office. It's generally how I make it through my morning. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and everything I feel like goes a long way. Anytime I get fluids in general, it's a big win. So AG1 has become a part of that. And AG1 is the supplement I trust to provide the support my body needs daily. And that's why they've been a partner with us for so long. I think it's going on 2 years now. And if you want to take ownership over your health, it can start with AG1. So try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and a 5, that's not how you say that sentence, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You're going to go over to drinkag1.com/Trail Society. That's drinkag1.com/Trail Society to check out some AG1 today. Okay, so news. We had a question write in that we didn't cover in our last Ask Me Anything episode, and it was specifically dealing with lactating mothers. And I think it was lactating mothers, injury risk, REDS, LEA, kind of what's been coming out in that space. You and I, before we hit record, were talking about how it's super interesting because anecdotally, like, we've got close friends who have gone through this. We've got professional runners in the space that we look up to that have gone through this. So I'm just kind of wondering, I know that you went back and looked over what had been coming out. I'm wondering what you saw as you did that.
Yeah. So, no shocker to us. I feel like this is like beating a dead horse by now, but like there's not much out there in terms of research in this field. Not shocking to me. I hope that we continue to change this. However, recently in September, so a couple months ago, the British Journal of Sports Medicine released kind of like an editorial summarizing like kind of hypotheses around this called RED-S in the lactating athlete. And it was really fascinating. It talks about basically RED-S and then lactation and how they are both different and the same, and how sometimes you could have RED-S, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, and sometimes you could be lactating and have very similar overlapping symptoms. And it's really hard to suss out if the symptom is from something like RED-S or if the symptom is from something like lactation and lactating and having a child that's requiring you to do that.
Yeah, it like naturally bumps you into LEA essentially, right? Which is just like limited energy availability, where it's like it's not intentional. You're just like your energy is going to a lot of resources, including lactation at that point.
Yep. And 4 key symptoms of low energy availability or RED-S are sleep disturbances, decreased libido, increased stress fracture risk, and urinary incontinence. And those are also 4 things that are higher risk for lactating mothers. And so again, very intertwined. It's hard to suss them out. But I think kind of one thing that came to the forefront of this paper was that, lactation does put you in a state that could be like a low energy availability state, so that we have to be even more cognizant of making sure we're meeting our energy demands from a lactation standpoint and then from an athlete standpoint. So I think there's a lot of dietitians and nutritionists and doctors out there who are at least getting to be well-versed in the energy demands of lactation. And so I think better understanding that kind of energy demand and then accounting for athletics would be like a good way to think about it. So maybe your baseline need is just higher. So therefore, like you really do need to consider like eating more, fueling more throughout your runs, all of that kind of stuff. And then another thing that it brings up is that on average, again, average is not for everybody. Not everyone will have this happen, but women during 6 months of lactation will lose like around 5% of bone mass. Oof. Just because a lot of the calcium is getting leached out into the breast milk. And so, if you think about that from an athlete perspective, if you are loading those bones a lot and maybe you have impaired mechanics due to a lot of the stuff that happens in the pelvis, you could be loading those slightly impaired bones more than usual, and that could potentially lead to higher incidence of stress fractures. So there's a lot of things that are all kind of confounding variables in this scenario that hopefully over time we'll be able to start sussing out and seeing like how this all can be managed. And so, if you are an athlete who is one of those people who loses a good amount of bone mass during lactating, maybe you have to decrease your load for a little bit while you build that bone mass up, because you can build the bone mass back. But again, if you're in a low energy state because you're also running a lot and you're losing that bone mass due to lactation, that bone density probably won't be recovered as well. So then you might be getting back into training with impaired bone mass. So yeah, it's really,
or you come in, if you come into pregnancy with lower bone density for whatever reason, right? Yep. Like we all come in with our unique genetic history, our unique medical history, et cetera. So I could see how there'd be a number of runners just at heightened risk going into that phase as well, just from like a bone density standpoint. So exactly. There are a lot of, it's not necessarily a chicken and an egg scenario, but it's like there are a lot of things that could be at play here. And it's just like harkening back to the big dogs got to eat and eat enough always, and all of those kind of mantras, in the sense that like it's that, I guess it's making sure that you're fueled well, but it's also the just giving yourself the grace to train a little bit differently, knowing that you're going into a phase where you are going to have lower bone density, et cetera, and just being aware of that, right? From like a metabolic need standpoint, from a training volume and training load standpoint, like how are you utilizing cross-training modalities? How are you, how much, what's happening with your run volume, et cetera? Like, I don't want to say, oh, you're breastfeeding, so you have to be conservative, point blank, period. Like, that's not, I don't know. Women get told that enough about enough things probably, but that I don't think is a fair prognosis, prescription, et cetera. But I do think that it's okay, that's something to keep in mind as a coach of women, as a female runner ourselves, et cetera, as friends to many mother runners. We've definitely seen it too. We've definitely had friends who have gone through this exact thing. But yeah, it's super interesting. I hope that more research gets done on it.
100%. And then there was one other small piece that I thought was interesting that I'm just going to touch on quick. And it was more around the mental status and how at that time, big dogs got to eat or you got to fuel better might not resonate with everyone. Because you're in this weird body, right? You birthed this child, you've gone through a lot of body changes, and now your body probably still doesn't feel the same. And some women, it's really hard for them to be oh, I'm now in this different body. I want to be back to the body I was prepartum, but I don't know how to get there. And so in some instances, it could be just a way, or it might elicit feelings of inadequacy and feelings of they really want to rush to get back to that body. So it can stir up old disorders. If someone used to struggle with disordered eating, that could come to the light, because again, they're dealing with this body that's foreign to them, and they want to be back to where they were before their child. And so there's just a big mental component too, where it's you need to eat more, but also you're in this body that is foreign to you. And the quickest way that to get back to your old body is to lose that extra weight you put on to have the child. And so yeah, it's a really tricky place. And I think the headspace piece is even trickier than, the physiology, which is saying a lot, because physiology of this is also complicated. So yeah,
there's also that expectation to bounce back, right? It's which is externalized, internalized. It's all, you feel that from, you feel it from society, you feel it from social media, you feel it from how you interact with the world, right? It's this I think Rachel Drake wrote a piece about that from the athletics standpoint of this idea of bouncing back, of like this elastic, like return to form and return to, you know, pre-pregnancy, like athletic stature, et cetera. And it's just like, that is like, I think she set it up as being like, that's not how it works. Like, it's not this elastic bounce back. It's like a slow, like continual process of taking care of yourself and like giving yourself time and space to do that. So I thought that was super, super interesting. But yeah, I'm going to be thinking about this a lot with all my athletes and with all my friends. So if you have more questions about this, or if you've experienced with this, or if you've read anything interesting in this space, shoot us a DM. Would love to hear more, kind of both anecdotally and scientifically, from the community, because you all are where we get a bunch of our really fun reads from. So don't hesitate to slide into our DMs.
Yeah. Speaking of ideas, you had an idea to race Cape Town.
I did.
And how are you feeling?
Excellent transition, Keely. I'm feeling good. Yeah, we know this is coming out post Cape Town and post Thailand. I think even this will come out in December. We're recording ahead of travel, but just wanted to kind of like pull back the curtain a little bit about what's been kind of like going on as we both step onto start lines that are different than what we've done recently, or we've had our own hurdles getting there, et cetera. And we'll do a full race recap of Thailand and UTCT on the back end of both those races in December. But yeah, I'm really excited to race Cape Town. I was there last year, but I had a moment of reflection the other day where I was like, this time last year, I was run walking, and I went for like my first like 3 or 4 mile consecutive run, like this weekend last year, like Cape Town last year. I was like, cool, I'm ready to go like do a few runs with Sasha when I get to Cape Town, type of thing. So it's really cool to like reflect on the year that I've had, and like how I had a lot of hurdles last year coming back from injury, and like those hurdles definitely were part of my season this year as well, but like learned a lot from them, and I've been able to like kind of adapt and adjust, and have put together like a really solid year of running. If I look at like volume, time, vert, mileage in comparison to last year, et cetera, like while it hasn't felt perfect, like things are starting to stack up, and that's like really, really exciting. And so while Cape Town is going to be competitive, you guys will know how competitive it is when you listen to this. It's like the women's 100K field is super, super good and super strong and a little bit scary. And my goal going in is to like really just go experience the race and put myself in a competitive 100K, which I haven't raced 100K in a long time, like a 100K like this. Kodiak was kind of be like the first iteration of that. And unfortunately had not received any body care in like 12 weeks going into that race, and did not end well for me, but excited to be back on a start line with a bunch of women that I really respect and love and admire, and get to go do a huge circuit around Cape Town. Who doesn't love a giant loop?
Yeah.
You know, it's about spending a day out in the mountains. Like I talked to my crew. I've got a local farm boy who's going to be helping me out there, driving my mom around. Yeah. Nice. I was like, I've hired you for the day. You're now my person. And I love like South African. I love South African like slang. And I was like talking through about being nervous but excited. He's like, oh yeah, you're gonna be hundo. Like you're gonna be 100%. Like you're fine. Like it's gonna be like, he's like, yeah, it's a race, but like you're also gonna be running through like some of the most beautiful zones, and just like take it in.
Yeah, just don't like, I remember talking to Ryan Sands before the race, and he's like, oh, like it's pretty like not technical, you'll be fine. And after the beach section, you come through this like kind of field, and then you start scrambling up this peak, and it's literally Suther Peak. It's a scramble at the top. You're finding footholds, and Ryan Sands decides to drop out like halfway up that climb and comes back down and passes me. And he's like, it's okay, Keely, this is the only technical section. And I'm like, this is like climbing. This is just super technical.
You're like, we are scaling boulders right now. Yeah, no, I ran that section actually last year with Marzelle and Drew and Sasha. And yeah, it is. It's like just like full scrambling up to some boulders. So yeah, I think the new section that they added last year across part of Table Mountain by the Apostles. And then the way we come off Table Mountain, I think, is more technical than in years past. That they did run that last year. So I think that section will be kind of slow and technical. The descent off Table Mountain looks really gnarly, but I'm really actually very excited to like see how I feel in the back half of the race where things are more runnable, just because I feel like, while that inherently hasn't been my strength, I think, as a trail and ultra runner, it's something that I've worked on a lot and spent a lot of time doing, flatter, like faster rolling running. And I feel like I've got a lot more strength in that stuff than I used to. And so I'm very excited to like make it through the first half of the race, get down to Hout Bay and change into shoes that will feel a little bit quicker, and like hopefully enjoy some heat and get to push and like grind over the back half of the race. And the next time I talk to you all, it'll be a reflection of like what actually happened out there, and if I survived the technical stuff, and if I enjoyed suffering in the heat on the back half of the day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're going to have so much fun, because at the end of the day, like, you're running through Cape Town. What?
Yeah, it's cool. And my mom's going to be there, and then we're going to have this like brilliant vacation on the back half of it. And it's going to be fun. Super sick. So I am jazzed. And then we'll sit down. The three of us will get to record post Thailand, post UTCT. Hopefully I'll have gotten to see many of you out there and get to shout you out the next time we record. We've got a really cool interview for you today. Before we jump into that, we got to give a shout out to the folks that are making our nutrition happen for the upcoming races. That is the people over at The Feed, literally saving our butts. I got my order in time to take it on the road with me. And so we love The Feed. We love the snack boxes. We love that it's your one-stop shop for a little bit of everything, including, beyond normal, like in sport nutrition. We're talking breakfast, we're talking coffee, we're talking snacks, we're talking, I'm buying like oat bars for Steven to bring to work with him, etc. Like it's literally got everything there. So if you want to try The Feed, you're going to go over to www.thefeed.com/Trail Society. And there you can get a $15 credit to spend on $35 product. And that's $15 every quarter. So $60 over the course of a year. It is a steal. That's like so many gels. Actually, gels are really expensive these days. So it's like a handful of gels, but it adds up in a big way. So thanks to the folks over at The Feed. Keely, who are we talking to today? Who's our meat and potatoes with?
I think we both think this is our favorite interview we've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair to say. And we're not lying this time. Okay, this is really our favorite. Not that we've lied before, it's just now this one's our favorite. So yeah, anyways, we are interviewing Sally McRae. I don't really think she needs an introduction. She is kind of like our mama bear. She gives us so much advice in every single realm of life, whether it's running or families or partnership or grief. Like, she is a wealth of knowledge, probably one of the most well-spoken people I've ever talked to, and also one of the most joyous people with the best laugh out there. She coaches, she runs crazy races, including a bunch of 200s this year that we'll dive into. She is a mama bear to two lovely children. She is a wife. She is so many things. And we are so excited for you guys to listen to this interview today with the amazing Sally McRae.
Hi, I'm Sally McRae, and I've been an ultra runner for almost 15 years. And I love trail running, ultra running all over the world.
And we are so excited to have you on the podcast. Keely and I, when I shot the text to her being like, I think we should have Sally on, she was like, let's do it. We're on it. So we're happy that you're here sitting down.
Yeah, we pulled the friend card, and that's how we get to talk with the lovely Sally McRae.
That's really what this is, you guys. This isn't a podcast. It's just we're inviting the listeners to hang out with us with our coffee. Are you guys drinking anything? I've got coffee today. Yep. Look at that. Beautiful. So welcome to a little coffee chat. We've invited you to the table, friends.
Speaking of
favorite conversations,
you do coffee chats. I hadn't listened to much of like yours. I've listened to interviews with you because they're always amazing, but I hadn't actually listened to like your Choose Strong podcast with Eddie. And oh my gosh, like it is so funny. It feels like you're sitting in on like a long coffee date that happens to be recorded. And so this is like, we're going off script already. Can you tell us a little bit about sitting down and recording podcasts with Eddie?
Yeah. I mean, Eddie and I, we were first best friends when we went to college together. We were both soccer players. And so that first year we became really good friends. Unbeknownst to both of us, we ended up having 4 classes together that first year, unplanned. And then the next year at 19, we started dating and fell in love pretty quick. I knew like that year that he was the one I was going to marry. Like he's just one of a kind. And to be able to marry your best friend is like such a gift. It's truly the foundation of our relationship. So he's always been, he was a youth pastor and then a elementary school teacher. And he did that for a while. And when we were living up in Bend, Oregon, well, for many years, I was always trying to get him to work alongside me, but I think I was asking him in the wrong way. It was more like, can you help me? Instead of like, hey, I need you, let's do this together. And so in 2021, he finally made that leap, and he's the reason why we have a podcast. He does all the things, producing, editing, all that. But our sit downs together are pretty hilarious because they're very true to just who we are. We spend every single day together. And then when we first did the podcast, he's like, it's going to be all you, just do interviews. And I was like, I kind of just like hanging out and talking with you. And so more and more, he's kind of like inched into being a regular guest. And now he has his own like cult following. People love Eddie. So yeah, we kind of plan a little bit what we're going to talk about. There's always something. We use our podcast to really just encourage people. I wouldn't categorize it as a running podcast. We use the stories and adventures that I do as metaphors to life, like as a way to encourage people. And within that, we throw in just having been together for so long, we have a lot of experiences and life experiences to share with people, and talk about our kids and pursuing goals and things like that. So yeah, we have a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and a lot of coffee.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of laughing. I was like, man, Eddie is a funny guy. Like it's really like, and like just listening to you guys, like your dynamic, you can tell that it's like so full of love and it's very authentic, and it's just, yeah, it's super cool. I met my husband when I was 19, and we were really good friends, and then yeah, didn't start dating until several years later. But yeah, it's kind of funny when I'm like, man, I've known you since we were kids. Like
it's your kid. Yeah. It's a special little foundation. Yeah, super cool. Oh, I love that.
How have you navigated, this is also off script, but I'm just gonna roll with it. How have you navigated like growing with someone for that long? Because I feel like if I look back to who I was when I was 19, if I try to think about like if I was with someone for that long, I don't know how we would survive that. So like how has been like changing together, like how does that work?
Yeah, and we've had a lot of I'm not going to avoid that. I think marriage is hard. Just that it isn't something that people always talk about or prepare you for, because you go through the different phases of marriage and dating. You know, when it's in the beginning, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. Falling in love, you're almost blinded by it because it's just everything, you know, he's your universe and he can do no wrong, right? But any time that you really commit to someone and choose to love someone, I think what we've learned is like you have to recognize you're loving someone that's unique from you. They're not loving isn't about trying to control someone and shape them into who you think they should be. It's choosing to love them for who they are. And we had to do a lot of growing in that and really learn how we both communicate, how we both show love. We come from different family backgrounds. So even that was really different for us. Like when we started having kids, you know, like I wanted to raise kids one way and he had different thoughts on how to raise the kids, and careers. And yeah, we've been through a lot, but it's always come back to love is a choice, and I choose to love him. And I wouldn't say that every year that we're madly in love, especially the first 10 years of our marriage, was a lot of navigating because you grew so much. Like we got married when we were 22, and you are a completely different person, not completely, but you grow a lot from being a kid from 22 to 32. By that time, within that 10-year span, we got married, we had a couple kids, we'd moved a couple times across the country, had changed jobs several times. I mean, we were doing a lot of growing. And so, you know, in the rough seasons, I think there was always moments where I felt like, gosh, I just really miss my friend. Like I miss my best friend and I miss laughing, and I hate this season that we're in. This is so hard. And knowing that every relationship has that, I think is really important too. I think that if ever we were to put off that we're this perfect couple, then we would be lying, because when you're truthful, you're going to have hard conversations. You're going to have conversations that are uncomfortable and things that hurt. And, but when you love someone so much, you know that you have to have those truthful conversations so that you can get to the best possible place. So now that, I know, Keely, we talked about this before, we will be celebrating 22 years of marriage on June 22nd. And I think, we're definitely at a place in our marriage right now where we're just like, we always say, like, we're so lucky that we get to be together. We're so lucky that we are each other's best friend, and just really feel like we have a better understanding of how much work it takes to truly have a strong relationship. And I think if we ever stop discovering each other and realizing, like, we could spend our whole lives discovering each other and finding the reasons why we love each other and choosing to love each other. And we could spend our whole marriage doing that. And if we stop, I think that's where sometimes relationships get stale, and you start to lose sight of what true love is. So yeah, we're always a work in progress.
I love it. And I'm just like, I'm laughing to myself a little bit, because it's like, okay, in a long form running podcast, we had to talk about, like, okay, how'd you find running? We're not going to do that today. We're going to dive right into, like, where we're at right now. And like,
all of you who want to know how Sally found running can look at a lot of other podcasts.
There's other places you can go if you want to know about how Sally became a soccer player and then became a runner. Which is not a bad thing, but here we are. You mentioned, choose love, choose strong. And there was a quote actually that Keely pulled from the book. And it says, "My belief is that everyone is created strong. Strength is more than just physical attributes. It's more than big muscles and toned bodies or setting personal records. Strength is an innate part of us. It's how we learn to get back after falling. It's how we navigate relationships, careers, and everything in life." And when you use those terms to say, you're choosing love, choosing strong, and all of a sudden it's like, it's that people can identify with that as like a physical thing, but instead it's like that relates to how you care for someone, how you relate to someone. It relates to how you approach the world and approach, what you do in your day-to-day life. And I'm wondering if you can tell us more about how that, like, choose strong, choose love mentality relates to, like, your relationships with friends, your family, with Eddie, et cetera. Cause I think that that's a really powerful way of looking at, like, the term strong.
Absolutely. I really believe too that, as humans, we want to know that we have value. We want to be seen, and we also want to know that we are capable of living out our life in a way that is not only authentic to us, but in the way that we dream. I think as kids, it's so easy to have these big imaginations and dream that you can do anything. And then we get jaded by the world and hurt sets in. And, there's the critics and the people that kind of push you down emotionally and mentally. And I think that we start to lose that side of us that was full of wonder and believed that we had that strength and believed that we had that value. And so when I was that excerpt from my book, and thank you so much for reading it, I had a really hard and quick lesson in strength. And one of the things that I realized, and especially in that journey to writing the book, was I've lived my whole life as an athlete. And I think that so often when we look at someone that's physically strong, so they got the muscles popping through their shirt and, just the quads and just fitness. I mean, I love watching fast people run. I mean, it's beautiful. And you just are in awe of that strength and that fitness, right? I think it's really easy for us to believe that strength is an attribute for certain people. And so often we connect it with a physical, a physical body, but also with people's achievements. And we just think, I'm just mediocre. And, that's that strength is a special talent. But when we flip that perspective, when we realize that strength is something that we choose, and you can choose to be strong in any situation in your life. And so, that part in the book I'm really relating that back to when I was 16 years old, and I'm at a soccer game. It's just a couple months before my mom passes away, and she is incredibly sick, physically so beaten down, very uncomfortable. And she stands in the rain to watch me play this last soccer game. And I think as I grew, and I went and played soccer in college, and as I began starting to write this book, I realized that that's actually the strength that I want. I want to be so strong that even in the face of death, I show up for somebody. I want to be so strong that even in my last days, that people know and understand how much I love them, and that there was no amount of physical strength that I needed to show that. And I think for my mom, her kids were, all five of us were the most important things in her life. And that's where she put all of her energy. And I believe that when she left the world, the greatest impact she had was the love that we had felt from her our entire lives. And I know for me personally, that has impacted everything that I do. And so, my mom never had social media. She was pretty shy. She had a small friend group that really loved her, but understanding that her love, impacted me so much that I get to write about it and I get to speak about it. And it's like literally how I live my life. And in turn has been a way that I've been able to reach hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. I just think that's so beautiful. And I don't think that is a special talent. It's not a special gift. My mom chose to love and chose to be strong, regardless of her physical state. And that's the life that I want to live too. And so I feel that as an athlete, whenever I travel to a race, whenever I coach, as a mom, as a wife, when I keep strength and love at the forefront of everything I do, it really helps me navigate what is truly important in life.
Yeah, I have literal chills. Like
I know.
right now, I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna cry on a podcast before 9 a.m." Awesome. This is why I cry on runs all the time. Keely just pulled a quote from another interview that you did that I think really beautifully ties into kind of the book and this project and your mom's love and how you've been able to express that. And Keely, I'm wondering if you can kind of read that quote back to us.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview, I think it was with you and Dylan, which also sounded like a bunch of friends chatting.
Yeah.
But you were talking about how, to leave an impact, we don't all have to reach hundreds and thousands of people. Like, your mom's gift was showing you love, and you were able to manifest all of that love to like actually have an impact on more people, but her impact was no less great than your impact is. And I loved how you worded that, because I think a lot of us do measure our impact based off of reach, right? But it only takes impacting one person to have a true impact on life. And so I loved that you kind of made that analogy, and how you've taken that love is through all of these projects and showing your strength. And one project in particular that was obviously really impactful to so many people was the Choosing Strong project that you kicked off like over a year ago now, and then kind of did part 2 this year that we'll get to in a little bit. But can you give us a little bit of a background on the Choose Strong project and kind of what your motivation was there and the impact you feel like that has on the community around you?
Yeah, the Choose Strong project was motivated by my age, and it was the same age that my mom was when she passed away. So 43. My kids at the time were also the same ages that I was when I found out my mom had cancer, so 15. And then when my mom passed away, 17, so 15 and 17. So it was like such this like really impactful year for me. And I think it's really important to express, like, I don't go throughout my life every day like, I miss my mom, like crying. That isn't like that. I think that the stories of our life, which are so unique to us, looking at everything in our life and understanding nothing is in vain. Everything that you go through, the hardships, the sad times, the depressing times, those triumphs, they are to be used for something greater ahead. And I remember as a kid, that was always really hard for me to hear. I mean, I think that's kind of like the wrong thing sometimes to say, is like when I was losing her, people would say, this is going to make you stronger and like, you know, better days are ahead. And it's like, I didn't want to hear that. I just wanted my mom. But as I grew older, I started to understand that I had this ability to empathize with a lot of people. And my story allowed me to travel around the world to orphanages and prisons and really hard, dark places in the world, and sit next to people and be able to have compassion and understanding for them, but then also realize how blessed I was to even have a mom that loved me at all, you know, in a world that, you know, especially the more that I traveled, I realized I was like, wow, I have way more than I ever understood. You know, as a teenager, you just think, I know teenagers, we can be really selfish. And so I always thought about all the things I didn't have and like how hard my life was. And it was like, it really wasn't, because you were loved and you knew you were loved. And that is really the focus moving forward. So I wanted to somehow expose that message to the world. And that's kind of where Choose Strong was born. And I was finishing up my book last year as well. We released it earlier this year, but I wanted to really draw a parallel to the last year of my mom's life and really understanding how powerful her strength was. And so I took a break from racing in 2022, and thankfully all my sponsors were very supportive of what I was doing, because I purposely set myself up to do these 5 races and not be in a physically strong place for any of them. So the miles of all these 5 races amounted to 507 miles, which was actually the number of months that my mom got to live. So every mile represented a month of her life, and every race represented a different part of her life. And so as the project went on, we started with Badwater 135. And then a couple weeks later, we did Andrews Crest 100. And then I think it was 14 days after that, we did Leadville 100. We then flew to Switzerland and did Crans, Montana 108. And then in a very quiet, separate attempt, we came home and we double summited Mount Whitney from Lone Pine, California, which is a 92-mile attempt. And then the last one, which we actually didn't make public, was running from my childhood home where my mom passed away to her graveside. And it was just so happened that it was like exactly the last amount of miles to finish out the 507 miles. So, but every race, we told a little story. And I knew that as the races went on, my body was breaking down more and more. Like I was not like in great shape at all in 2022. Like it was just always kind of fighting my way back to the start line. But understanding that the power of the mind was what was getting me to the finish line each and every time. And it was really amazing we then did a film about it. You can find it. I think they called it Running 507 Miles. It's not on my site. It's on BPN site. They actually sponsored the entire project, which is incredible. But yeah, the idea was to share her story, to honor her, and to celebrate the fact that at the age that she was, and me being that same age, I am a professional athlete running alongside my kids, totally healthy and strong, and understanding that is a great gift. It's a beautiful gift to have your health, to be alive, to try every day, no matter what state we're in. And I think that's why I wanted to go into the races kind of with this handicap, if you will, knowing like I understand the struggle. I know what it feels like when you're tired and you kind of feel beaten down. It was great for me to run like not in the front pack and to be in the community in a different way, and to really feel the struggle of these races, because so often, as both you guys know, you pick your A races and you put your whole heart out there and you suffer up front, and that's your job. But I was taking a step back and just gaining a different perspective, and just it was a really powerful year. And
and like super symbolic, right? Like I really think that's beautiful that it wasn't about performance. It was about very much paying homage to like your mom standing in the rain watching you play soccer, like in this like just knowing symbolically how hard it is to be strong when everything hurts and you're tired and you maybe don't even want to be there sometimes, type of thing. You'd rather be sitting somewhere warm and comfortable, etc. So I think that's really, really beautiful that you were able to have this like very profound symbolism throughout that entire project. And I think people felt it in a big way too. I think people were like, wow, that's a lot of miles, but they were also like, we like know how Sally approaches things. I think Keely was about to type voluntary suffering into the Google Doc there. And definitely that is ultra running, I think maybe.
Well, it's like, I think Sally talks about this a lot, is just like she's endured suffering that was not voluntary, that she had no say in, right? So now like when she approaches these insane projects, she always like recenters herself by reminding herself that like she's choosing to do this. And like I think that's a really good reminder to me sometimes, because I think I forget that. And I'm like, this is horrible. Like, why am I doing this? It's like, no, I chose to do this. This is really cool. We're like seeing how far we can push ourselves. But
this is Keely's mantra for Thailand when she's going to be bushwhacking through ant nests in the Thailand.
I chose to be here.
I chose to be here.
What
I signed up for it. Like 2 weeks. You want to go?
Like, yeah, it's in 3 weeks. It's 100 to 100 miles. They don't know. They all the different sites tell me something different, but it's like 100 plus miles in Thanan, Thailand. It's like the national park there, outside of Chiang Mai. Yeah, totally outside my comfort zone. So I can kind of like all these podcasts I've been slamming in the past couple of days really resonate with me right now.
Like I'm choosing this. Yeah, just this is a total aside. We've got a lot of tangents today. I was doing commentary for that race last year, and the lead woman in the 100-mile race ran into an ant nest that was like in a tree branch, and all of a sudden our camera panned away really quickly and like turned off. Essentially, we went to a different camera, and we found out it was because this woman hit this ant nest and suddenly it was panicking and was like taking all of her clothes off because she was like covered in ants. And so our camera person very quickly like shut the feed down essentially, because it was like he needed to help her.
Gosh,
and she was like panicking
scary.
And it's just
I will
like
watch out for tree branches.
No ant nests for you in Thailand, but you're choosing those ant nests, every single one of them.
Oh my gosh.
But
it's gonna be an adventure of a lifetime, Keely.
It's gonna be amazing. I'm so happy, like just so excited for you, and we'll recap it when you're back from your trip, and I'm really excited about it. But talking kind of like moving from, we all thought 2022 was a lot, and by a lot I mean like we were like, wow, Sally like got after it, this is a cool project, this is massive, and you're like, enter 2023.
Why not double it?
Why not just like double down? You do, I think, what we're now affectionately calling the Grand Slam of 200s, and that's because the Triple Crown wasn't big enough. You and a couple other athletes over the last couple of years have added Cocodona to that mix. I actually coached an athlete who did it a number of years, or just a couple of years ago, Wes Plate, who did Cocodona and then the Triple, and he's amazing. His whole story is phenomenal. A big part of that 200-mile community. But yeah, you took on the Grand Slam at 200s. That's 4 200-mile plus races, because they're not just 200 miles. They're all way too long.
Yep.
In the span of 18 weeks, one of which like was really close together because Tahoe was delayed due to snow. So you had like a super short turnaround between those two. So like, I don't know. It's just like, we know this is hard, and we're just wondering, like, I listened to a podcast and you're like, I haven't run a step since, like, I'm like really recovering. Like, how are you doing? Like, what an insane 2023.
Before we dive into me, I want to know when you guys will be doing a 200-mile race. Is this somewhere on the very bottom of the bucket list? Is it on page 10 of the list?
Keely and I are very different.
I've made it publicly known that I will never do a 200.
Whereas I'm
That's
like,
how I was.
I'm like, tour? Do I do tour soon? Yeah, I want to do. Can we go do TDG Tour de Jante together? Can we just like schedule that in for like 2026 maybe? Just put it on your calendar. Yeah. So I want to do tour. I've crewed at, I've like helped at Tahoe. I've crewed and paced at Moab. Okay. And of the 4, Cocodona is the one I'm most excited about, I think. So it's like not this May, but there will be a May that I will probably do Cocodona. So
Yeah.
You can come pace me as I
I'll come
hallucinate
pace
my
and
way
crew.
through.
Keely, don't shake your head, because that's how I was for many years.
No.
I was like, I will
Never say never.
ever do a 200. Yeah, because I was like, how much running are we actually doing, guys? Like, what is this even?
Yeah.
But if you do approach it knowing it is not a 100-mile race, like I call them epics. It's beyond the ultra.
I've done 171. I've done the Tahoe Rim Trail. So I've done 171 miles, but I didn't have to sleep. It was short enough that I didn't have to sleep at all. So it's like the next step.
I'm sorry, 29 miles shorter.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Pretty much a 200.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I've done one.
You're already there. You're already there. You know, Cocodona was my favorite because they do have aid stations a little bit closer together, and you do get to see your crew a lot. And I just love the point to point that you're like in the desert, and then all of a sudden you're ending in Flagstaff up in the Alpine and the altitude. I mean, it is really a adventure. Yeah, Cocodona, definitely recommend. I mean, they're all amazing courses, like the beauty you see in all of them. But, you know, I think when I finally decided to do it, I was like, I can't believe that I'm doing it. But after Choose Strong, the cool thing is realizing like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did the 507 miles in such a close amount of time, and that my body held up, like I wasn't injured. Like, and I always believe every year I want to be better and I want to keep pushing the envelope. And if I get to do this as a career, I have all these people supporting me in my running. Why not just be curious and do something that is totally different? You know, I've been in the sport long enough where it's like, do I keep on doing the same races or what other people expect me to do? Or am I going to leave the sport when I retire? And well, maybe I'll just never retire, but knowing that I did everything that was in my heart and everything that I really wanted to do. And 200s were just so mysterious. I knew I didn't know a lot about them or how to train for them or anything. And I thought, why not do all of them? So the goal was to get better with each passing one and to learn something new. And so like I trained for all of them differently and paced them differently. I tried different things every single one because I genuinely wanted to be a student. And in the back of my mind, when we started 2023, I thought it would be so cool to like win the last one. Like if I really could learn something.
Graduated. Yeah.
Yeah. Like graduate. So, the way the Moab went out, and what I experienced in there, I don't think on paper, I should have won, especially because second and third place they're stellar, fast, and incredible athletes. But I think because I had so many problems in all the first three, and all those things happened in Moab, I was like, oh, I know what to do in this situation. Like I've been here before. And so it was just building on all of my losses and setbacks. Because I think I probably would have maybe even dropped out if I experienced all those things for the first time at Moab. So it was a really cool journey, just learning. And, I was humbled every single race. My races were so public, and we're making a final documentary on the Moab race right now. But, it was like, I didn't have smooth performances. I don't think that any of my performances are anything that anyone's gonna be talking about, but it's like a lot of, I remember at one time, Courtney Dewalder was like, seriously, Sally, you need to get it together. Like at UTMB, she's telling me, she's like, no, really, like you need to figure out what's going on. Like every race is like a nightmare. And I was like, I know, right? Like, why does it have to be this way?
You're like, from the mouth of babes.
Yeah. As someone who's paced you in a 100 mile, I can see the chaos.
Keely,
like I remember going for Tarawara. She comes into the aid and she's just like, Keely, where? Like sprinting through, and she's like, I've been eating lollies, and I'm like, what are lollies?
Lollies.
Lollies. And I'm like, what? And it's like these little teeny gummies, and I'm like, well, how many have you had? Like, oh, like 3. And I'm like, you need more than 3.
I was so I was so dizzy. I was like,
so
we have to keep running or Med's going to make me sit down. Like they're going to make me stay in the aid station. I think I almost fell into the table. I was so
And I tricked you though for a while, and you ate a lot of gels in the next hour or two. Because I just kept pretending we were at like 30 minutes, but it was like 10. And I'm like, another one.
Oh no, it's time
to my victory at Tarawera. It was one of my my first international 100-mile win, and having Keely there. We had that trip was just super fun. I just remember Tarawera is such a fun weekend. They put on an incredible event, and Amanda was there, and just the whole crew. It good stuff, Keely.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
So fun.
Keely's very
Yeah.
enduring. And she's like an incredible pacer. Like everyone needs a Keely on their crew.
Done. Sold.
I
Sign
mean,
me up.
badass athlete. So you're not going to get away with running slow with her, but she's going to push you to be your best and then also make you laugh along the way. Like those were some really incredible miles.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
that makes me so happy.
One thing I just thought of, and I wonder your opinion on this because you kind of touched on it, but most ultra marathons require like so much suffering, and they end up making you feel terrible, right? And so I feel like a lot of the times I end up signing up for another race because I almost have like amnesia and I forget how horrible they were. So I wonder, like you said, going into the final race of this journey that you almost felt like you had learned so much, but I could see that those memories could be both helpful and also not very helpful, because you could be starting this race like, cool, I know what's going to happen, but also like, please don't happen again because it's probably horrible. So like how did you balance that?
I was gonna say this reminds me like the first timers coming into Western states who just like have freak amazing debut hundreds, and then it's like they come back again the next year and they like struggle because it's like, oh no, now you know, and like the knowing is dangerous. So tell us about knowing.
Yeah. Well, I think that all relates to how powerful your mind is too. So if you are looking and expecting and fearful of, oh my gosh, like this could happen again, or, some people would just have that more pessimistic, bad things always happen to me. Well, like at some point it's going to get really crappy. And for me, like I went into Moab and I was like, this is going to be the best race ever, even though every race before was not. Like things were stacked against me. But I think being in the sport for so long, I know the power of staying hopeful and understanding that sometimes it takes like 10 failures before you hit that, that bright star that you've been aiming for. And one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself is setting yourself up for success in your mind. And if you believe that in your mind, you're more likely going to achieve it than if you are looking for all of the setbacks. And so every time we hit an obstacle in the race, I just didn't let it take any focus or control. I took care of it the best I could. And then it was like, we need to keep pressing forward. Like we need to get to the next aid station. I need to catch the girl ahead of me. I need to get to the finish line first. It was, what are all the positives in this? And in Cocodona, what I experienced at Cocodona, I had to deal with that for the rest of the season. And at times it got worse and it was like painful. I never experienced that amount of physical pain in a race in my entire career. And I think that having crossed the finish line, and really when I saw the finish line, it was an outer body experience. I mean, I was sprinting towards that finish line and jumped through the air.
It was so cool.
A genuine celebration of, I overcame that. And I didn't think that I could. I mean, I really didn't know how I would take another step, at mile 140, still having 110 miles to go and being in so much pain. And so when I got to Moab, I understood, okay, yeah, the last 3 races have been filled with a battle that I've had to face, but every race I've gotten to the finish line. So I'm either going to focus on what I learned from that, and I'm going to celebrate the fact that I was able to endure and I became stronger than that, or I'm going to be afraid of experiencing all those things again. And so it was just constantly choosing what I wanted to focus on. And that just goes back, your mind and what you choose to focus on can absolutely change the course of your journey. And directly relating this to athletes, if I put on my coach's hat, it doesn't matter if you're back of the pack, middle of the pack, champion of the race, your mind is going to get you into a better place at any time that you want it to. And if you come into an aid station and you are feeling like, man, I'm low, I'm out of calories, I'm nauseous, I've got these blisters, you have the choice to just let that be your focus, or you take care of it and you focus on what you want to accomplish. And so focusing on the goal instead of feelings, can be a better way to approach every race day. Because how many times, both of you, No, you guys are incredible. How fast you run at the front. A lot of people will never understand how painful that is, especially going up a hill when you're being chased. It is next level. But you know that when you cross that finish line, the 10 minutes after cross the finish line, the 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, so many of those feelings subside. Yeah, you wake up the next day, the body's like aching a little bit. But as those days go on, what are you left with? You're left with what you did. You're not left with the feelings that you felt at mile 82 when you're trying to run as fast as you can, and you know, you're redlining. And I think that if we focus on what we want to achieve, instead of being so obsessed with how we're going to feel on race day or the emotions that we might experience on race day, you know, all those things are fleeting. They come and go. And, you know, I don't show up to race start lines for a feeling. I want to accomplish a goal. And sometimes the negative feelings get away. Sometimes the discomfort gets in the way. And it's really cool to kind of then turn into the one that is in control of all of that. I'm going to control what's going on. Yeah, there might be some pain that pops up that I wasn't expecting. I might trip and fall and, you know, skin my knee, or I might be throwing up my nutrition, but I'm still in control of what's going to happen next. I control the next step. I control what I'm thinking. And the goal is always going to be the focus.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I've finished a race and maybe it went really well on paper and people are like, wow, like that must have felt amazing. And you're like, no.
I wanted to die. I retired from ultra running 4 times during the race.
Like, I thought I hated running. Like,
I quit the sport 12+ times.
So true. Yeah. I asked myself why at least 105 times. Why am I doing this?
And your pacer's like, la, 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 keep going. Take a nap, Sally.
Come on.
Lay down for 5 minutes and then we'll go again.
Yeah. Oh, that was Joe Corcione in the last 30 miles of the race.
Nice.
Literally running into tree branches. And I'm like, I'm sleeping right here, Joe, like barely even talking straight. And I would drop down in the dirt, man. I always told myself I would never do that. Cause I mean, it's so funny that you brought up ants. I'm like, I hate ants, especially the ones that are like really big, like those big black ones or like the red fire ants. Oh my gosh, give me the heebie-jeebies. But I was always like, I won't ever take dirt naps. I'm not going to just drop down in the middle of dirt and sleep because I don't want ants crawling all over me.
Or
and
tarantulas.
I did that like 8 times. Yes. I did that like 8 times in the last like 38 miles or something of the race. I dropped down for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then pop back up and like, okay, here we go.
It's insane how effective it is though. Like I was pacing Alicia Jenkins at Moab, and I think she's doing the Triple Crown. I think she's doing Cocodona. I think she's doing the Slam next year because she's a beast. But she, like, we'd be like just like hammering along, and then all of a sudden she'd like wouldn't be able to maintain like a 25-minute mile, and I'd be like, oh, crap. And then it's like as soon as you got her to lay down, she'd be like, I'm gonna lay down for 5 minutes, and then 4.5 minutes later she'd like let out an exhale and like pop up and start running, and you were like, wait, what? Like, I'm not ready to run. Yeah, I'm tired now. So silly. So silly. Yeah. We kind of want to, we got one more question that ties into the 200s, and then we kind of want to steer from that question into some like more like family stuff, because while you're amazing, your family is like dream status. I think we're like, cool, that's something to aspire to in a big way.
Yeah. And we have a lot of people listening who want advice on like youth athletics and like coaching their daughters and sons through that time too. So I think it could be really impactful.
Yeah. So I guess to start, how was balancing the family and kid dynamic during this 2023 project in which mom was out running a lot sometimes?
Yeah. Well, now that my kids are teens, and so for listeners that are parents, you go through these different seasons in life, when they first enter the world, especially those first 3 years, like you feel like I just need to keep you alive. And if I leave you alone for more than a minute, that might not happen. So you feel like just this overwhelming burden that every single minute has to be accounted for. Like you are fully focused, in tune with everything that this child is doing. And I think especially for the new moms that are listening, I know that season is also very tiring and it's exhausting and it's overwhelming. And especially if you have a partner that maybe works outside of the home and you just feel like I've been in baby talk land for like 8 hours straight and I don't even feel like an adult anymore. Like I haven't taken a shower in 2 days. I can't even go to the bathroom alone. Like this is like, when will this end? And it's okay to even ask yourself that. I know for Eddie and I, when we were brand new parents with Mackenzie, we would have these talks where like, we can't wait until she walks. Like, we can't wait till she's in preschool. We can't wait until, all these things that you just can't wait for them to do because you're so exhausted. And I think as we slowly moved through the seasons, what we learned is like, wow, the days are genuinely long, but the years are short. Like, I can't believe my kids are 15 and 17 right now. They're turning 16 and 18 in March. And, Mackenzie's moving out of the house in 8 months. And I cry every other week about that, because when I look at her, I still remember so well when she ran her first race when she was 4 years old, and how cute she was in her little pink shorts standing at the start line. I still see her that way.
We still see her that way too. Like we know Mac as this like tiny little bean. So it's crazy that she's going to be a college student soon.
I know. She's packing up her bag. She's heading to NAU, which we're super grateful because that was the closest one to home. We can actually drive to that school from Southern California. It was Colorado or Oregon were close competitors in that decision. But yeah, I think that with this year being able to do 200s, I have been very calculated my entire career. The races that I choose, I think that one thing I've always spoken about is I've never genuinely had a conventional training plan because I've always put my kids first. So I was never, it was really rare that I would, ever join a morning run group, because I needed to train when my kids were taking a nap, when they were at preschool, which is sometimes preschools are only a couple hours. And so I spent a lot of time training on treadmills at gyms that had kids clubs. So if there's a kids care, a babysitting room at the gym, I'd be like, oh yeah. And a lot of times you get like 90 minutes or 2 hours. Like that was like gold to me. But what I found through all of it was if I create a training plan that complements my family instead of trying to stick to a training plan that makes me feel guilty all the time because I can't meet the demands of it. And I can't, I'll get sad not being able to meet with groups of people and go running. I have to understand that for me as a mom, the most important thing in the world to me is my family. And I want my kids to feel loved and I want to be a good mom and I want to do all the things. But there was also that, obviously that athlete competitive side to me. I wanted to be the best that I could be. And so there was a lot of frustration when my kids were little because I wanted to live the life of a pro athlete. I wanted to train the way that what I thought was that everyone else was training. And I knew just one morning while I was having my coffee, Isaiah crawled up onto my belly. He was like 10 months old. And he's like slobbering his face all over my cheek. And I just like look into his eyes and I realized this is genuinely the greatest gift. And I get to carve out, the story that I want to tell. And if I'm going to be a good mom, then I have to let go of these invisible expectations that I'm setting on myself, which is really easy. I think that we tend to do. I think we feel pressure.
We internalize things that aren't necessarily like we think
no one's
that there's
saying
external
that
pressure.
To you. You're like, who said that? I mean, I hear this. I mean, I see this even on social media. Sometimes it's kind of frustrating because, you could have 100 people say wonderful, kind things to you and you could be having a great day. And then like that one person in the gym says something and then you go to social media and you're like, we need to change this and people this. And you're like, how many people actually said that to you? Like, how often is that actually happening? Is it all of society or is it just like you maybe we're in a bad place? That one jerk. Like we will all have jerks in our life. We'll all have our critics. And I mean, I was there too. I remember when people would approach me in the gym and say things. I mean, no one ever thought I was a runner. They always thought I was a CrossFitter, a kickboxer, a cyclist, and I used to get like all like upset about that, and then I realized I was like, I don't actually have to get upset about that. Like I need to take control of not only my mind, but what I receive is true and like what is good and what I know about myself. And I think that when I looked at Mackenzie and Isaiah, I thought I want to be a good mom. And I also want to show them what it looks like to pursue a dream. And it's going to get really messy. It's gonna
I
be
love that
really
so much, though. I think it's so important for like people that are currently parents, people like myself who like hope to be a parent in like the next couple of years. Like that is like really good to hear. We've had those conversations like, okay, if I don't race this race this next year, like, am I okay going back to that race in a different chapter of my life and like knowing that it might not be quote unquote as perfect as it is right now? And I'm like, oh, life's never perfect. Balance is a fallacy. I've said that, I don't know, probably a million times on this podcast, but we want to talk a little bit too about kind of continuing on that relationship trend. Like we've gotten to watch, you're a very public person. We both, like Keely and I, have known you for a long, long time as well, personally, but we've gotten to watch this relationship between you and your daughter, Mac, watch her love of running, which is so pure and seems very joy-filled and joyful, which is really cool. And I'm wondering, like, how has it been to share running with her, share your sport with her? And then how have you been able to kind of like help keep her balanced in the world of athletics, which can be so, so tricky, I think, particularly like with social media and all that kind of stuff in the mix?
Yeah, I love chatting about this topic. I think it's something that a lot of parents are trying to navigate. So I do get contacted quite often in the world of youth athletics, going right into high school. And thankfully, Mackenzie's had 10 different coaches. So I can kind of talk candidly about coaches without anyone knowing who I'm talking about, because it's been hard. And 10 coaches, because there'll be several coaches on a club team, several coaches on a high school team, on a middle school team. So when the kids were probably like 3 and 5, so Isaiah was 3, Mackenzie was 5, I started taking them out on the trails with me consistently. And there was 2 reasons why I did that. One, I just never believed, I didn't grow up with like a lot of material possessions. I would never call myself poor. If you read my book, I don't ever use that book. I don't consider, we didn't have a lot growing up. We didn't have medical and dental care and, maybe the normal amount of food in the kitchen all the time. But I feel like that because I grew up not having a lot, it helped me really understand what is important in life. And so for me, I felt like giving my kids experiences and getting them outside and adventuring with them was far more important than how many toys that they had or how many pairs of shoes and clothes. We also made our kids share a room until they were like 5 and 7 or 6 and 8. I think, when they were 6 and 8, they finally had their own rooms. But there's a lot of things that were so important to me. So it was relationship building. That's why we had them share a room. They had to learn how to work out their differences. And I would always tell them, you're going to have a lot of friends in your life, but you'll always only have one brother. Mackenzie, for Mackenzie and Isaiah, you'll always just have one sister, Mackenzie. And so this relationship is so precious. And then I really believed that I know it was true for me. Some of my best memories, some of my best conversations are when I'm in movement with people. So being a soccer player my whole life, I still miss those days of my team running out on the soccer field and giggling with my girlfriends as we're putting on our cleats and our shin guards and we're warming up, and those feelings of winning games and supporting each other when you lose a game, and genuinely becoming best friends through all of that. And I'm still friends with high school and college players to this day. And so I think running, as both you guys know, how many incredible conversations have you had out on the trail, and amazing, hilarious memories out in the mountains? I mean, they genuinely are the best. And so I wanted to create that with the kids. And so I would take Mackenzie and Isaiah out on the trail, and it was, let's go look at deer, let's go catch some frogs, and we'll go play in the creek. It was never about, we're going for a run. And I think that this point that I'm making right here is so important as parents. Your kids will have a lot of coaches, a lot of guides, counselors, teachers in their life, they will only ever get one you. They get one mom. They get one dad that they look to, that has that title. And I think there's something so precious and sacred about that. That is a gift. And that's something that I like to encourage too. Your kids are not a burden. They're not your job. They are your gift. And when you view them that way, when you speak to them that way and you treat them that way, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel that they are a gift to you. They're going to feel that love and that care, and they're going to trust you. And as Mackenzie and Isaiah have gotten older, that has been really important to Eddie and I, is that they trust us in every season of their life. And so now that they're 15 and 17, our kids come to us with everything. Every single thing they're going with, it's their dating relationships or the hardships at school or stuff their teacher says or that their coach says or hard things they're going through with their friends. I mean, I can't replace that. There's and being able to have those conversations on the couch at night here in our home. I think those are the things that have made our kids strong and confident. And so when they would go out on the trails with me, I thought one of the most empowering, one of the most powerful tools that any athlete has across all sports is enthusiasm. If you love what you do, if you are enthusiastic about what you do, you will continue to do it, likely for the rest of your life or until, you're capable of doing it, because you genuinely have dug roots so deep that are rooted in love and enthusiasm for that thing. And so my hope was to create that for the kids and being outside. Now, Isaiah, like me, went on to be a ball sports athlete, but just this year he did join the cross country team. So he and Mackenzie, for the first year ever, are teammates, and that's
so sweet.
It's the sweetest thing. But for Mackenzie, she started to really, really fall in love with trail running. And by the time she was 11 years old, she was running up mountains with 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet of elevation gain. I mean, she's summited Mount Wilson, Mount Baldy, Ontario Peak. I mean, she's an incredible mountain runner and has this incredible amount of endurance. But before we would ever go on an adventure, she would always be the one that would come to me. And I remember her waking me up sometimes in the early morning, because I used to train like at 4 a.m. and 10 p.m. at night. That's how I navigated little kids, was training when they didn't need me. So I had a lot of tired years working toward that dream. But Mackenzie would sometimes bring the headlamp to me like at 5 a.m. before school. When she was like 7, 8 years old. And she'd be like, "Mommy, can we go run to the bagel shop?" And we'd put on our headlamps, and it would just be this sweet little run. And we'd get a bagel, and we'd sit at the bagel shop like at 6:30 in the morning. And then we'd run back home. And as time went on, and every time that it would hit summer, she's like, "Can we go run up a mountain?" And she'd always tell me, I love how much we laugh, Mom. And we just like have the best talks, Mom. And as she got older, that is what she's equated running with. And every time she's joined a team, she's run for 2 different high schools, because we lived in Bend when she was a freshman. Her main focus has always been on the friendships and who's on the team. And even when she was looking for a college, she was the most focused on the dynamics of the team. How does this team support each other? Do they get along? Like, do they love one another? I mean, and that's really why she chose NAU. Coach Mike is such a supportive, loving coach, but the team was so friendly to her. So I really believe as parents, we have the opportunity to instill enthusiasm, grace, and encouragement into our kids' sports journey. It doesn't have to be in running, for those that are listening, because there's only very few people who will ever see the ins and outs of your kids day to day and understand their dreams, their goals, what they're going through. And you want to be the one that they trust. And that's not to say that, especially as a runner, Mackenzie, growing as a runner, I've really hit heads pretty hard with some coaches. Now, a lot of that has been internally. So I don't go to the coach and have arguments with these coaches, but it has been really difficult for me, especially if it's a coach that is maybe not so toxic. I'm just going to say it. Toxic coach that uses not encouraging words to the team, likes to say things to control the kids, or for whatever reason, just is not positive. And that's been something that throughout the years, I know that I have been able to walk with Mackenzie through. And if anything, it's been really good, because instead of, being really upset about it, I'm like, you're going to have bosses in your life like this. You're going to have teachers like this. You might be in a relationship with someone like this. So I'm going to explain to you what is good and right and what is toxic and a red flag. And so it's been, we've had incredible conversations over the years. And I feel like Mackenzie is so much better than where I was at 17. When I was 17, I mean, it's just incredible to see her mental state and how she works through things and how she communicates with people now. And, and I know too, I tell her, like, you have to show respect always to your coaches, to your teachers, even if you disagree. And, but be very careful about what you receive in your heart and your mind. Always trust what you know is to be good and true. But, if you can identify when something isn't rooted in love and isn't encouraging, that's going to allow you to have control about what stays and what needs to go. But you're out there to run and be the best that you can be, to be a supportive teammate. And that's really how I support her. So I've never coached her. I've always wanted to. I'll tell you, it's been really hard not to. But I know my place and I've chosen that place. I think what's unique to me, and I don't think it's going to be as so common as maybe the vast majority of your listeners, is just me being in that space as a professional runner too. I've never wanted Mackenzie to feel like she was in my shadow, or that she ever needed to do what I was doing or proceed in the way that I have. And I remind her all the time, I'm like, I never did any of the events that you run. I still to this day have never run the events that you run. I never did cross country in high school. I did it in middle school, but I didn't, get on the track and run the 2 mile and the 1 mile. I mean, and I just remind her, I go, you're on your own journey. You are amazing. And I'm not going to come in as a coach and tell you how to do this or that. I'm just going to be your mama in the corner cheering you along every step.
Yeah, it's so critical. I feel like I've definitely seen parents try to like live vicariously through their kids, like in a negative way. I think there's like a positive there, right? Of like just like really celebrating and being there for them. But it's different than when it's like I've coached kids whose parents are trying to relive their glory days or relive something that they never had, et cetera. And it's very evident when you're there. So yeah, it's hard to be a parent, I think, just like being the supportive role.
Yeah. And I think on that supportive lens, like, it's so cool to hear that Mac kind of gravitated towards a team that she felt was really supportive. But, with the creation of the NIL deals and all of the social media and stuff, I think even with really supportive teammates and a pretty good running culture, like, collegiate sports can be pretty toxic for female athletes.
Yeah.
And so how have you kind of addressed this with her as someone who, has always kind of praised being able to train in a healthy way and having your menstrual cycle? Like, have you had these difficult conversations with her, and how have you kind of addressed that as a parent?
Yeah. So, there have been a couple times, just in Mackenzie's life. She's always been really tiny, and that is genetic on both sides of our family. So there's a lot of really like petite women on my side of it. I'm not. And then on Eddie's side of the family too, there are definitely some just smaller framed, women. And even when Eddie was little, like when he was younger, Mackenzie looked exactly like him, like body type, everything. And so she is genetically and naturally really small. Like, she's full grown right now, and she wears like size 5.5 shoe. And she's just
a bitty. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a bitty. She's a little peanut. And so she has had to deal with people pointing that kind of stuff out because she's a runner. And in our family and in our house, I talk about food as fuel. I have every single year. Mackenzie is an incredible eater. We dial in on her nutrition and her supplements, and that is something that I'm very open about, and we have discussions about it. And it's good too when you hear stuff in the sports world and news. We can talk about articles, and we can talk about injuries, and we can talk about getting sucked into a toxic culture. And I'd say that her age group, more and more high school coaches, they actually talk about it quite a bit. Like at both her high schools, it's seminars they actually do with the girls team.
It feels like it's advanced. Like it feels like this was like so in the, like it was so taboo when we were in high school to talk about like menstruation or REDS or LEA. We didn't even have like terminology for it. And now it feels like, my friend's a dietitian here in Seattle, and I feel like every other day she's doing a seminar for a high school or college team somewhere on REDS and LEA. Like it's really cool, just like as an observer, to be like, okay, there's hope for this generation.
All the colleges that we went to too. I mean, it was amazing. Just on the recruiting trip, they talked a lot about that, and so we felt like, well, I've felt like that, especially as she hit like the beginning of her high school years, and, you know, her body started changing and she grew. And I think that, you know, being able to talk about it just so naturally, you know, she comes home and she's, I didn't feel great at my workout. And I'm meeting like, well, what'd you eat before? Like, what did you, you know, and
did you eat? Yeah.
Yeah. And did you eat? And she's, I mean, people do know her as eating a lot. I mean, she just has that body type where she can go to In-N-Out, eat two cheeseburgers and a milkshake, and you're just like, oh my gosh,
still hungry. Yeah
it's so not fair. But yeah, so I think that keeping it as just a normal conversation, I started talking about food with both my kids when they were in elementary school, and my approach for that was just because Eddie used to take the kids to McDonald's when I would do my long run when they were little, because McDonald's had a playground, and I would get into arguments with him. I was like, please don't take him to McDonald's, like of all places. And he's like, if you're going on a long run, we're doing pancakes in the playground at McDonald's, like, because our kids are like super high energy. Both of them were. And so I was like, you know what? This is where we compromise. Fine. It's pancakes and McDonald's. But my kids, as they got older, they would catch on to that. And so when he would ever take them out to fast food, they'd be like, Mom, guess where Dad took us? So it became kind of like a joke. But when the kids started understanding food, they'd be like, why don't you like McDonald's? And I was like, well, I just think that, like, when possible, aim for like high quality food, because that's just going to make you move better on the soccer field. And no, like, please, all the listeners, like, no, I'm not judging anyone that goes to fast food. Like, I ate so much Taco Bell after every single 200-mile race, and like,
we lived
like, still go to fast food.
that's how my parents got us on these like cross country road trips, is that we'd stop at the McDonald's with the play place because we could have like chicken nuggets and like burn off a lot of energy, and then put us back in the car. Like, this 100%. Is my existence for sure.
I'm not against fast food. I'm just going to say that. Like, if you bump into me in a fast food place, I think I even met people after I won Mobab. I was in the airport getting a milkshake and a hot fudge sundae and fries. So nothing against fast food, but I think especially when you're a new parent, you're just like, I'm like so paranoid about everything that's going into their body, and you're like, we're going to be super organic everything, and I'm never going to be ruled by bribes. And it's like, oh my gosh, I did it all. We did the fast food and the bribes, and I'll do anything to get you to stay in your bed. And like, so I think when it comes to food now, that's what we talk about. Like, Mackenzie will get home, especially at the beginning of her high school career, and she would say, Mom, what should I have before practice? Like, what's the best food I can have? And so I just love that we're candid about that. So they understand food is fuel, but they also understand that they can have as much ice cream and donuts as they want. It's just that maybe it's not going to make you feel good for tomorrow's training. So we don't really do like, this is bad, or this is your guilty pleasure, or this is your reward food. It's like, that's all the food. You can choose from it, whatever you want. But if you want to perform and feel good in training, you might want to lean more towards like whole food examples. So I think it's just really how you approach the way you communicate about food. Don't ever make it seem something that makes them feel bad about themselves, or that they can only have as a reward. It's like, no, just choose how you want to feel.
Yeah. Not demonizing things. I think that's really critical. It's like how we talk about things, or how we even like show, like lead by example, right? Like, what am I doing? What are you seeing me do? Like, so many of the kids that I grew up with were impacted by like just watching their parents interact with.
Oh yeah.
With
well, we grew up like in diet culture. I mean, everything was Slim Fast and Weight
Almond moms.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just my mom. I don't ever remember my mom not on a diet.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Like,
or talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you always knew that she, like, for me, I was like, I always knew she was like discontent with her weight. Always. I don't think I don't really ever remember my mom feeling pretty or like good or like the way this looks on me or like I feel strong, and that makes me sad. But I see how that we were all impacted by that too.
Yeah, we've all internalized that message. And I'm so happy that like podcasts like this, podcasts like your podcast, like all these, just like people talking about it more and more, I think normalizes it. People have definitely told us, like after listening to us talk about a topic, like they feel more comfortable bringing it up with their family or their friends or just like broaching those conversations. And it's like the normalization, I think, of having this kind of dialogue is really important. And we want to be respectful of your time because we could have recorded for 4 hours and we're
we have to do a part 2 just because
we'll do more. Sally's going to become a regular guest. Actually, we're going to have Sally on quarterly to talk about something random.
Well, if you guys are Keely's getting married. I know both you guys have, families on your mind sometime in the future. I don't know when but I can be a mama bear to you guys, and I would love to share and guide at any time. I'm an open book, so I'm not perfect, but man, I've made a lot of mistakes in myself, and I can tell you, don't do this.
Yeah, I will say that we were like working on this outline yesterday, and Keely, and we're leaving this in. Keely, you're not editing this out. We're leaving this in. Good. And I was like, we're like, okay, what do we want to talk about? And I was like, well, we should talk about like this and that, but like also we could just ask her anything we want because like we just throw a topic at Sally and we'll have an hour conversation about like this specific aisle in the grocery store. Like it's like totally fine. Like we're golden. So I think maybe you have to come on for an Ask Us Anything.
Oh, that would be really fun. I'd love it. I hope it happens.
Yay. I try to make promises that I can keep. So this will be one of those. Before we let you go for today, where can people find the book, the podcast, you on the internet? Like where can people come to track you down?
Yellow Runner on Instagram. My profile has a link tree. And so you're going to find the book, my YouTube channel, our podcasts, other good stuff. So yeah, find me.
You can get a lot of Sally.
Yeah, all the things.
Awesome. Well, thank you for dedicating an hour of your morning to us. We know that you're a busy, busy lady, so we appreciate you immensely. Okay, still favorite interview? I think that's still our favorite interview. Sally is, like we said at the top of that, our mama bear. Like we could have recorded with her for 4 hours and just gone deep into really anything. We tried to write that outline before we hit record, and it was like, we might talk about some of this, but we're probably going to go deep dive on a tangent, and we sure did. If you want to find Sally, she's all over the place. Yellow Runner on Instagram, Choosing Strong, Choose Strong. Her book came out this past year. Her podcast with her husband, Eddie, is amazing. Please go check it out. If you like her laugh, you'll get a lot of it over there. And I think that brings us to Society Slam. Keely, you've been feeling festive. What's going on in Society Slam this week?
So Society Slam this week is Christmas holiday themed. So even if you don't, celebrate Christmas, it's just kind of festive themed. And we're going to talk through our favorite Christmas gift ideas for Trail Ultrarunner, and then also our favorite like dishes around the holidays that we think are best for happiness and recovery.
I love it. I love it. And this could go a lot of different ways. I was thinking about Christmas gifts. Just because it's like I need to get the ball rolling here and take care of some people in my life. But there's so many cool ways to do that. I was actually just in a newer local running shop to the Seattle area recently, out in the Snoqualmie kind of North Bend area. And I was like, oh my, I love supporting the local retailers. Like, oh, the sock collection, the new running caps they've got in. I was actually there picking up spring energy gels for Mike McMonigal for Cape Town. So, they got a little bit of everything, but I was like, it'd be really cool, for the runner in my life, the local runner, right. To maybe get them a gift card. If you're not sure what they want, if you're not sure what kind of shorts they're into or what hydration pack they might be eyeing up, I do love besides getting socks, because you cannot go wrong with socks. I love a nice pair of socks, but, I think like getting a gift card to a local run shop, like your local run specialty shop, where they can go in and try on the shoes they might be eyeing up, or the new fancy pair of shorts that might be a little bit out of their budget normally. I think that can be a nice way to, one, support your community, and two, have your runner get something nice for themselves that maybe they wouldn't have bought otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely reiterate that. I think supporting local is awesome. And it's just fun to like go in and see someone and talk with them and like get their opinion on stuff.
Hope they have a shop dog that's like really cute. There's a 14-year-old cattle mix in the shop.
They're all wearing Christmas hats, that's fun. I think on that sock front, there's a good Christmas sock collection at Stance. I love Stance socks. Not sponsored at all. I just love those socks.
Same.
They have Christmas.
Sponsor us, Stance. We love your socks.
Those are really fun. I think most runners, and again, if it's not for you, not for you, but most runners kind of like being dorky. I feel like the easiest way to be a dork is with socks. And so like themed socks, always fun. And then I think another gift that if you're willing to spend a little bit more money and your partner, friend, cousin, mom, sister, whoever you're buying for is very adventurous and loves to go into the backcountry or whatever, best gift I ever got JT was the mini Garmin InReach. Yeah. Because it's a little expensive, but again, like where they are. There's always a way to know where they are. There's a help beacon. It's really safe. And I'm almost shocked that we didn't get one until 2 years ago. Just with how unpredictable the world and weather can be.
Yeah. Steven and I actually both have one now. I got him one for his birthday a couple years ago. I ended up buying one for myself this past year, in part because it was like, oh, we're like, sometimes we're at the same trailhead, but he's going skiing in the spring and I'm going for a run. And it's like, oh, we should actually both probably have one of these. Like, the emergency plan gets weirder and weirder when only one person is in communication. So, the Garmin InReach Mini is a great investment from like a personal safety standpoint. And you can send the like satellite, like not even the SOS, but it's like when Steven's running late in the mountains and he's not going to like be out to signal for a little while, he can send me like a pre-programmed text that's like, hey, like all's good. Like just running behind or whatever. Like it's nice. It gives you peace of mind to be like, oh, they're not lost indefinitely. I don't have to call search and rescue. So that's a great idea, actually. We also wanted to talk about kind of favorite. We're walking into the holiday food season, which brings up, I think, both nostalgia to the forefront, but also just like, I don't know, some extra scrumptious things. And I wanted to know what your favorite Thanksgiving and or Christmas dinner item is. I
mean, mine's kind of a combination, so I feel like I'm a little bit cheating, but I don't care. Cool. Mine is definitely like leftover turkey, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce that you put on a sandwich.
I think that's a great call. Our friend Damo introduced us to this recipe a number of years ago, and it sounds kind of gross, but there's actually not that many oysters in it. It's an oyster stuffing, which is like, there's not that much oyster in it. So it feels less weird when I don't know if you're not a seafood person, you're like warm oysters, not sure if I'm into that, but basically it's like the stuffing is so good. It's got like bacon lardons and Brussels sprouts and so much bread. And it's just like, I think stuffing can sometimes be this like side thing, but this is like the meal. Like I just want to eat vats of this stuff for days, and I'm always bummed if we don't have enough leftovers of it, because it's so good. So yeah, like the high quality stuffing situation, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I'm with you. I personally love all the food that we make.
Yeah, I'm normally responsible for a pie.
It's probably a little salty. Like, it sounds great.
Yeah, it's savory. It's amazing. Yeah. And then you can't forget about dessert, obviously. Lots and lots of pie happening in this household.
Yeah. I made a like bomb apple cake the other day with roasted apples and like a streusel top. Oh, I was pretty impressed with myself. We have like an apple tree that fruited like crazy this year. So we have like 70 apples in our garage, just in like a dark place. So I try to make something with apples every week. So also if you guys have any apple ideas, you just send them my way.
Keely needs help. That or we're gonna buy her an apple press or something of that nature. So that's amazing. Okay, we're gonna leave it there for today. Thank you all for continuing to slide into our DMs, for humoring us along the way as we go on wild tangents throughout this thing. But if you've listened this long, give us a little love. Go leave us a review. Maybe a 5-star review would be great. It really does help other people find our podcast. So share it with a friend. And until next time, we'll see you out on the trails.